Everybody say there and then. If you're new around here, every week I preach, and our teaching team always preaches from the perspective we call there and then. What it means is we want to tell you what was happening in the story of the Bible there and then. That if you understand the world that the Bible was written into, then the words of the Bible will never make sense to you. So we're going to always do there and then we'll apply it to the here and now towards the end of the message. There and then, Jesus is sitting with his disciples, and he is around them. Now, two of them, named James and John, come up and they ask a question. I want to read you what their question was, because you're going to see really clearly in this own story that the same stuff you and I wrestle with when it comes to our idea of God is the same stuff that they're wrestling with, and it's kind of funny, and I just the practical application of it, when you read this, it's just, there's so much comedy and just real stuff, man. This is like, it's just so real when I read it, and I want you to hear it. So Mark chapter 10, verse 35, this is what it says. It says, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him, and they said, "Teacher, we want you," what's this question? "We want you to do for us whatever we ask." Now, that is so, interesting to me. It's like, hey, whatever I ask. Like, if you're a millennial, you know that this sometimes feels like you, and it sometimes annoys you about your friends because you're less a millennial than, your millennial friends, and you're like, I work for what I am not like all of them, right? And so, but you have friends that you do see this happen, right? And we do this, too. All of us do this. It's like, it's a part of being young. It's a part of having a young mindset is, before I even ask you, I'd like to kind of hedge my bet. I'd like you to do whatever I ask you to do. It's a real kind of bold statement to ask of Jesus, the Son of God. And here's the dynamic, is that these disciples were hanging out constantly around Jesus. Jesus was a rabbi. He was a Jewish rabbi. And in the rabbinical tradition, you would have your disciples, they were called Talmudim in Hebrew, and the Talmudim would go wherever you went because they wanted to learn how you lived in every circumstance. So I want to see how you deal with every potential thing. There is no public versus private life. You mesh the two, and the rabbi displays God in the good and in the bad, God in the happy and in the not so happy, God in the difficult and in the joy. You get to see the rabbi live out. Here's who God is, not just this is when it's great. It's not the highlight reel called Instagram. It's not just the best things you'll only curate and put on social media. It's the wholeness of all life a rabbi would let these disciples in on. So they traveled in packs and they would stay together. He had 12. Two of them are asking his question, and the other 10 are probably in and around it. They come up and they're like, we want to know that you'll say yes to our question. Now, it's easy for us to look at James and John and go, that's kind of like punk, you're rude, or that's selfish or whatever. It's easy to project that onto this story, but I would ask you to do an honest evaluation. We're not so different than James and John. Here's why. How do you feel when you ask God for something and he doesn't do it? How does that feel for you? How do you really respond emotionally? Do you become indignant? Do you become frustrated? Do you kind of look at him like, well, what's up with that? Is there something to you that feels like I'm entitled? At least James and John have the boldness to say it up front, whereas a lot of us act like we're okay with the outcome that God chooses. The moment God chooses different than my outcome, and now I'm all of a sudden not okay. They at least say, hey, let's not hide. Let's not pretend. Enough with the pretense. Before I even make my prayer known to you, is it cool if you just tell me right now you're going to answer it? I don't even want to pray. I just want to know that you're going to say yes, because then there's no stress to the whole thing. Hey, by the way, this is what I know you're going to do for me. We do this. This is in our hearts. It's in humanity's hearts. And what I love about Jesus is, and if you're a leader, you lead your own company, department, business, children at home, listen to me now, because you're going to hear Jesus be a phenomenal leader, because he never gives his yes before he knows what he's saying yes to. Don't ever give your yes away for free. Give your yes away when you know what you're saying yes to, because every time you say yes, you say no. You say yes to something, someone somewhere else is getting a no. So you have to be careful with what you give your yes to, because sometimes we just, yes, that's an all yes. And there's no evaluation, there's no deep dive, there's no discussion, there's no questioning. And Jesus is like, no, watch, this is how you do this. He literally shows us so much about life right here. It says in verse 36, Jesus replied and said, well, what do you want me to do for you? In essence, I want to know, what am I going to say yes to? Now, this isn't him saying, whatever you ask, you're going to get. This is him doing a dive and saying, I'm not going to say yes to that. I would like to know, what is it you want before I say if I will or I won't do it. Verse 37, they replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other ones sit at your left in your glory. Now, this language is a little confusing because we're not really a kingdom culture anymore. We're a democratic, we're a republic, so we have like a democracy and multiple people get to vote and all that. But in a kingdom culture like this was, in this day and age, Julius Caesar's son, his name was Caesar Augustus, was ruling the Roman Empire, which is where this place was. It was the ancient Near East, and Jerusalem was in a part of the Roman Empire. Now, at this time, they understand kingdom. Why? Because there's one guy at the top that dictates life for everybody. And so in their mind, they're like, well, you're the Messiah, and the promised Messiah is supposed to come and kind of take back over the world. So we don't really know how this is all going to work, but you're raising the dead, you're walking on water, you're healing the sick, you're multiplying fish and bread, you're teaching things that the religious leaders are getting ticked at. You're including people who we're supposed to judge and hate and keep out, and you're saying they could be forgiven and loved and be a part of learning about God, even though we think you can't even come into the room. How could you even dare let them come into the synagogues? These people do these sins, they're not allowed. And yet you're including them. You're not saying all sin is cool. You're just saying you get a chance to hear it as much as I get a chance to hear it, and we can have a relationship with God and work it out as he helps us work it out. I mean, that's so different, Jesus. If you're that guy and you're the Messiah and you're saying you're the Son of God, the Son of Man, I guess the idea that we have is you're going to take out Rome. You're going to set us back up. We're going to be running things. When you come into your glory, translated, is the same idea of when the glory of a king takes over the castle. And you are the new king in a new castle, and you are ruling the world. I'd like to sit on your right, and my brother would like to sit on your left. That's what their question really is. It's hard to grasp that, but this is basically saying, hey, if I knew you were going to become president, I'd be like, look, I want to be the vice. Get it, your boy. Okay, fine. Secretary of State. Can my brother, I want to be Secretary of State, he wants to be vice. That's the question. So Jesus now is going to help us get to, which he always cares about more. Let's get to the heart. I don't want to get mixed up talking about the different things underneath it. I want to talk about what's going on inside the heart. And this is what he says to them. He goes, I love it. Verse 38, he's so direct. You don't know what you are asking. You don't know what you're asking. I love that because it really helps us understand our place versus God's place. You don't really know what you're asking. What you're asking for is something you can't comprehend right now. It's so big. And to help them kind of come along, he says, can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? We can, they answered. And that's true. But now Jesus is going to break down a prophecy for them. He's going to let them know. And now, by the way, for some of you guys that didn't, grow up in church or whatever, and you're like, drink the cup, what are we talking about? Gin and juice? What are we doing here? He ain't talking about red cups, okay? He's talking about, it's a symbol. It's saying, I'm going to drink the cup of sacrifice, pain, and death. I'm going to be baptized into the ground, into the grave. Now, I will rise again, and I'll come out, which is why when we do baptisms like we're going to do today after service, that's what that means. We go into the grave with Jesus, and because he conquered the grave and conquered our sins, we can come out and be alive. But he's saying, I'm going to be baptized into the earth. Can you be baptized? Can you drink the cup of sacrifice and pain? And they're like, we can! Because in their mind, they don't know what he's referring to. They're just answering the question that's the surface question, because ultimately all they really want is, I'll say yes to whatever you ask of because I just want to sit on your left and right in your glory and rule the kingdom. Because they think kingdom is a definition that is so different than what Jesus' real definition of God's kingdom is. And we're about to hear what Jesus says. He makes it so explicit so that you never have to be curious. Wait, what does it mean, God's kingdom, my kingdom? I don't understand the difference. He's going to lay it out right here. And he says to them, you will drink the cup, and you will be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. Basically saying, you're right. You may not know what this means, but remember my words. You will give your life for this. They will kill you once they realize that you believe in me. Well, I'm going to rise from the dead. I'm going to visit with you. You're going to start spreading this message of hope and forgiveness for people who used to be excluded and now are all of a sudden included. And when the authorities of the day, when the religious leaders and even just the Roman emperor leaders that think that you're saying Jesus is God and now Caesar's not God, which Caesar was not cool with you saying anyone else was God but him, that government structure will kill you. You will drink this and you will be baptized. You'll go into the grave for your belief in me. They don't understand what he's saying, but that's what he's saying. And now he comes back to verse 40. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. Even Jesus submits to authority of his heavenly Father. Even Jesus doesn't get to say, this is how I want it to go. He says, I want you to know there's a limit that I submit to, which is my heavenly Father as well. I'm his son. And he says, these places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. You know what he's saying? James, John, you're not prepared. You're not prepared for that. You want something you're not prepared for, and that's why it can't happen for you. And I think there's a principle there. Sometimes we want things from God that we're not even prepared to handle. There are some blessings you pray for that if you don't get your life in a better order to be able to handle that you think it would be a blessing, it would be a curse. If you don't have aqueducts back in the day and you pray for rain and rain starts coming, that's not a blessing, that's a flood. Some of you want blessing. Oh, I want to meet the woman I'm going to marry. You ain't ready to meet her. You don't have your acts together. You don't have your life in order. You're not ready to be the man that she needs. But you want her. You just want her love. You want her beauty. You want her to be able to care for you and be there. And you want companionship, but you're not ready to offer the part that she needs. You just want for you. You want yours. You're not thinking about the bigness of God's. She belongs to God's kingdom as much as you do. But because we get so myopic into our own way, we have a hard time remembering, no. There's more to what you need to get prepared for before I give you the blessing that you're asking for. Because then it becomes a curse. It's a heaviness. Jesus tells them, you're going to drink this cup, but you're not prepared to have this. Now, here's where it gets real, and I love this. Verse 41, watch this. When the 10, the other disciples, the Talmudim, when they heard this, they became indignant with James and John. Well, I would think so. Right? They're like, listen to these fools like, who do you think you are asked to sit on the right and left? We are all disciples, okay? We are all equal. All of us are in this department. You'll run this place. We're on the same place, okay? We're on the same pay scale. We all work just as hard on this project in here trying to take credit, trying to get up, trying to promote. Part of it is they're probably irritated because they didn't ask first. You ever get mad at somebody who gets blessed or gets an opportunity and it's just because they asked for it or they went and put themselves in the right way or they were willing to do the extra effort that you weren't willing to do, but instead of you doing the extra effort, it's easier to just get mad at them for doing it? Right? Like that's part of our humanity, and that's what's happening here. The other 10 are indignant. Now, this is what I love about Jesus, is Jesus doesn't shame the two for being ambitious. He doesn't shame the two for being selfish, and it's probably a mix of both. He actually handles this, I think, brilliantly. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant, and this is why, I want to say this. This is why it's important for you. Listen, I want to talk to the men for a minute. Guys, this is why it's important, and I think for everybody, but I want to talk to the men for a second. It's important that you have a group of men around you that will watch your behavior and be honest with you about it. If you don't have anyone in your life that has permission to tell you, hey, dude, I don't think that was like the best way to handle that, then you don't have the right people around you. And you need the right people around you. That's why we believe in Life Group, and it's why we do events to get guys together and to get women together. In fact, speaking of that, if you are a man, I want to encourage you. We have on November 15th, we're doing a men's event. It's just men. We're going to be meeting. It's going to be amazing. It's called Man Cave, holla. And listen, it's anyone 18 and up, and it's going to listen, this is going to give all of us as men an opportunity to talk about men's stuff, talk about guy stuff, and also to be able to connect with other dudes. So we can get a chance to be like, man, I need to get one or two out of this room to just like, connect with, to know. So I see them on Sunday. It doesn't mean you're going to leave and start meeting at Starbucks every single day. It just means you're going to start the process of doing what Jesus' disciples have, that he's created an environment for them, which is, I just know a few of the guys, man, that we could do this thing with. Guys I can call when it's really bad. Guys that I can meet up with. Guys that I know are going to be at this next event. Guys that when I walk in or walk out, or I'm standing in the outside plaza, that I could be like, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, good to talk with you again, because you have a shared experience. That's the reason we do Man Cave. Listen, I want to ask every single one of you guys, please, sign up for this event and get there. It's a free event. You come, we put it on. We make sure it's great. It's going to be an incredible time, an encouraging time, a fun time. We got some really fun stuff. And ladies, if you love your man, do everything you can to say, babe, I'll handle everything. Trust me when I tell you, ladies, you want your man to come to this event. He will come back to you better than you let him go. So don't make it difficult. Don't get all uppity about the calendar. Just be cool, okay? Be cool. Send him away. Handle the kids. Do what you got to do. Call your mom in. Whatever it takes, okay? Get that man to man's event. I promise you he'll be better for it if you hear me say yeah. 3 of you, that's fine. That's why you need to come to men's event. When I help you grow a pair. Did I say that out loud? This is how Jesus handles it. He calls them together. Listen, He calls them together and he says, look, you know that those who rule the world, who rules the Gentiles, they're regarded as rulers, they lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. He's saying, look, the Roman government, okay, the Gentiles, the Greeks, that's another word for Gentiles, Greeks, it's like they're non-Jews. It's like the way that world kind of runs, the way the power structures are, they lord it over them. They're authoritative, oppressive, reckless, and careless. I don't care about you. You are a means, listen to me, you are a means to the end. I don't really care about your experience. I just need you to just do what I want because I want what I want when you're done doing what I want you to do. So there's no real care about that. There's not a service that we think, I don't owe you. You're under me. I don't owe you respect. I don't owe you appreciation. I don't owe you care. You need to appreciate that you get a check. That's your appreciation, right? There's that kind of like, you need to appreciate that I let you have, you need to and there's this like real kind of authoritative, some of you know what I'm talking about because you grew up in a home like that. You grew up in a home where it's like, I don't have to say I love you. I told you I love you when I got married to you. I don't have to say I love you to these kids. I don't have to ever tell these kids I'm sorry. Some of you never heard your dad say I'm sorry to you. And by virtue, it's hard for you to sometimes say sorry. Right? Because this stuff gets in us, and then it's a tool we don't have because we never received it. We're never on the receiving end. And this is where we start to see that Jesus is like, no. That's how they act. Okay? That's how this world functions. Me, mine. I'm not going to say sorry. I'm not going to apologize. And so because you grew up never getting that, because that's how you worked underneath a boss, now you boss like that. Now you lead like that. Now you wife like that. Now you husband like that. You mom like that. You dad like that. And Jesus is looking at this saying, look, that's how this world functions. And now he says the phrase that I love so much, verse 43, but not so with you. That's not how I want you, my disciples. The people who say they're following me, put their trust in me, believe in me. You believe me, you're following me. I don't want you to be like that. That's not how you act. Okay, let the world run and devour itself, trying to get to the top and lording it over everyone else. Not you. No. With you, instead, watch this. He introduces it. Ready? Here it is. Here's the introduction of God's kingdom. This is it. Instead, whoever wants to become great, whoever wants to sit on my right and my left, whoever wants the glory of God, whoever wants to sit in the so-called castle of my kingdom will never have a castle and never have a throne. Because that's not the kingdom I'm building. No, if you want to be great in my kingdom, you must become a servant. Oh, they must have been like, what? The foot washer? The one who scrubs dirty stuff off people's feet. I got to become that guy? What in the world kind of kingdom is this? You're a punk king, Jesus. It'd be easy to feel like that. What kind of power is that? What kind of authority? And I don't understand what this is. He's like, no, not so with you. Whoever wants to rule with God, he says, whoever wants to experience God freely flowing, his kingdom flow, freely flowing. We've talked about this a couple weeks ago. The flow of God is like water through a hose. If you kink it up by starting to think more about you and how you could, and you just so pray, you don't really care, you're just like, all of a sudden it kinks up the kingdom flow. It's not that it's not there, and it's not that God doesn't love you, it's not that it's available to flow, it's that you kind of cinch that thing up and it can't flow. It doesn't flow as good. Whoever wants to have this freely flowing, the fruits of the Spirit, peace, joy, love, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, self-control, faithfulness, these things flowing. You want some of that? He says, I got it all. But my kingdom has those things, but you don't get to run your kingdom and get the benefits of mine. You want the benefits of yours? Go run your kingdom. Go. You have it. Have all you want. In my kingdom, it works like this. And then he introduces the idea that this is what you must do. You must consider others. So the kingdom of men, James and John's kingdom, he's like, listen, I want you to know the test of greatness in that kingdom is how many people that you can control. That's what Rome had. I had all these people under my control. Everyone's afraid of me. This is how it goes. And he goes, no, not with you. With you, I want it to go different. This is what I want it to be like for you. I want it to be not how many people you can control, how many people can you serve. You could still be the CEO, but two different feelings when it comes to working with you. You could be the boss, but do people feel like you serve them by getting them a job and you appreciate them? Or do they feel like you're like, I'm the authority over you. You should be lucky to have a job. Because one is building your kingdom and one is building God's. Same boss, same kingdom, same amount of money, same contract, same business, all the same. Except there's a difference there. It's whose kingdom are you building? Who are you helping? Are you helping you or are you helping God and the people God loves? Now that's a difference. He says, I want you to go about this the right way. And then watch this. If there was ever a person who had a right, if there was ever someone who deserved to be served, it was Jesus. He's the Son of God. He's the King of the universe. His kingdom is bigger than all of them. And this is what he says, verse 45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So what is God's kingdom? How do we do that? What does that even look like for us? How are we supposed to be great? Well, you got to be the chief servant. If you do that, you will always win. Jesus will always have your back. Even in the hurt and the pain, you still have to learn how to be a servant. Others have to become a more important part. If they are unhealthy emotionally or spiritually, then you still need to be like Jesus and decide to serve. You won't lose your heart. Listen to me. You will not lose your heart when you do it that way. You get to keep your heart. You lose your heart when you begin to all of a sudden consider, I got to look after me. God won't do it. You can do it by expanding God's kingdom. And you can't expand God's kingdom when you don't have anything emotionally, financially, or spiritually to give. Well, what does that mean? Well, for me, it means this. My kingdom, when I'm building my kingdom, ultimately, it comes down to a couple different ideas. It comes down to me thinking about myself, thinking about what I need people to do for me, what I want them to spend their time on. I want them to spend time encouraging me. I want to attain more for me. My kingdom is really a focused effort to do for me. I spend about myself. I think about myself. I consider myself. I want to spend my energy, my energy, my emotion, my money on me. That's my kingdom. What does it look like? Well, I spend more and I give less. That's my kingdom. I spend more on me. I give less to others. I spend more time on me. I give less time. I am more present on the things I want to be present for. I am less present for the things other people need me to be present for. So I'm not listening to my kids when they're talking because I've got things I want to say to them. I'm not listening to my husband when he's talking because I want to help him understand what he doesn't see and help him be. I'm not listening to my wife. I'm not present. I'm just lording it over them, waiting for my time to make sure they understand how to serve my kingdom. I spend more on me and less on them. But then Jesus comes and introduces God's kingdom. And what's God's kingdom? It's the absolute opposite. Jesus says, I'm not going to spend my energy, my time just thinking about me and what I could get all these people to do to serve me. God's kingdom comes and says, no, I spend less so that I can give more. I spend less on me, less time and energy and focus on just me. Not no time. You have to be strong and healthy. You have to be wise and educated and learned. You need to be precise and wise with the business and the affairs that you're in charge of. Doesn't matter if it's the home or if it's the company or if it's the department or if it's your college career. It doesn't matter what you're in charge of at this time in your life. Yes, you have to be prepared and ready each day to do that to your best. That's not the point. The point is, whose kingdom are you building while you build those things? You're all supposed to build those things. It's why. Whose kingdom are you building when you do those things? God's kingdom says, I want to spend less, I want to give more. So for us at our city church, how do we do this in the here and now? There's a couple things I want to give you as a family. I want to tell you what we're going to do as a church. As a family, I think that we need to consider how am I spending more of my time and my emotion pouring into the people in my home? How am I identifying the things I see them do right? When's the last time you caught your kids doing something right and just paused the whole moment and said, hey, I just want to let you know, I saw that and I really appreciate that about you. It's so easy to catch them doing something wrong, isn't it? Isn't it just easy? It's like automatic. Like, hey, whoa, hey, no, hey, you didn't, hey, whoa, hey. It's like we're the instant hall monitor at all times. Have you noticed that about you? It's in me. But it's so important that we learn to become the person that is the chief encourager in our home. Listen, give more. Spend less time thinking about and just spend a little less effort and time on getting a moment for yourself and give more in those moments. In the moments with your husband, with your wife, with your kids, with your college roommate, with your mom, with your dad. How can you find a way to say, I want to identify the things. I want to spend more effort and more time on this and give less to me. Spend less on me, give more to them. I think that there's a way that we could also practically do this when it comes to God. God, would you start to open my heart and show me areas in my life on a day-to-day basis where I could spend less effort just thinking about me? Listen, humility isn't thinking less about yourself. It's thinking about yourself less. Hear the difference? Listen. Humility, Christ-like humility is, listen, is not thinking less about yourself. It's just thinking about yourself less than you do normally. That's the kingdom of God he introduces. Practically for us as a church, there's something I want us to do over the next couple months, and I want us to do it every year. This is just our first year doing it. But I want us to do something in December. A lot of you have asked, and a lot of your life groups have asked, and I'm super stoked that we even have a generous church asking us, what are we going to do for the holidays? How are we going to be known as the most generous church? How can we practically do that? We're going to do the thing we do every year, and we're always going to do. We're going to take those that are in our community, and we're going to love them. We're going to love our city. We're going to make sure that we love our city and show them this is who we believe God believes you are. You don't have to come to our church. You don't have to be a part of what we do. You don't ever have to do anything. Never visit our website, anything. But we want you to know there's a church in our city and in this world that sees you, hears your cry, knows you're oppressed or you're in need or you have hope that you're looking for, and we're going to provide it. And so what I want us to do throughout the holiday season is I want us to prepare to give what I'm going to call a miracle offering. Why? Because I want to make miracles happen for people who need it. There are people who in this world will not have the same Thanksgiving or the same Christmas if it's not for us as a church community, and I want to do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to partner with a couple different causes, and I want us to do this practically over the next couple months. As we start shopping, we start considering how much do I need to decorate? How many gifts do my kids really need? How many gifts per person in my family do I need to give? And I want to ask all of us, Brandon and I are doing it too, to decide literally to plan out and decide, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I want you to think through as a family, how could we do God's kingdom? Which is, how do I spend less and give more? Not spend nothing and have nothing and it's terrible and there's no decorations and you look like bah humbug. That's not God's kingdom. God's kingdom is, consider you, that's fine, but are you along with that building God's kingdom? Are you thinking about someone else? Are you spending not nothing, but spending less so you could give more than you would have? Spend more than you would have on somebody else. Give more so you could do that. So here's the partnerships that we're going to, the causes that we're going to do. People that are victims of human trafficking, we're going to fund the rehabilitation efforts and the rescuing efforts of people who are trapped in common current day slavery. Victims of domestic violence, we have a partnership with a domestic violence shelter here in the Inland Empire. We're going to continue to use resources to do just that. Children of incarcerated parents. You're going to hear a little bit more about my wife Brenda's story over the next couple weeks as we venture through some of these causes, but there's a cause we're going to partner with where children whose parents are incarcerated won't get a Christmas if it's not for our city church. And so we're going to adopt a number of families and make sure that we provide a Christmas that, and some of you will be involved with delivering these things and being a part of making Christmas literally happen for some of these families. We're also going to make sure that the young adults who have aged out of foster care get the provided resources they need so that they could have a holiday season too. They don't have family, they don't have mom and dad, they aged out of the foster care, so they're on their own. But at our city church, we're going to make sure that foster care home for young adults, they're not on their own. We're going to make sure that they get a Christmas too. Global disaster relief. People who have their lives devastated, instantly in one day your home is gone because you were born and raised in an area where it's in a hurricane area or it's in a tsunami area or a tornado area. We're going to give some of the proceeds and make sure that people who've just lost everything, that we let them know, hey, there's a church in Southern California that sees you, hears you, and is going to do our part to help care for you. And lastly, access to clean water. Clean water is a basic human right, I believe, and there's parts all around the world that don't have it, and we have a few partners that we're going to make sure those causes we could impact. And how are you going to do this? There's two ways. One, you're going to have to plan. Okay, you got to plan how you're going to do this. Your heart is big, but if your heart is bigger than your plan, then you're not going to be able to give what you could have or what you would have, and I want to help make sure you know how to do it. So you have to plan how you're going to do it. Like, what does that mean? Am I going to cut back on how much eating out, how much Starbucks, what do I cut? What are we going to do? How many less gifts will we buy? One less gift, fine. How much money? You might have an amount, whatever it is, but plan it. And the second thing is just decide. Decide on the amount, but listen, especially if you have kids or if you have college roommates or your coworkers, get together with other single moms or with your life group and say, hey, here's what we want to do. This is what we're thinking. And do it in community around here and connect to it and say, hey, this is the amount we're going to do. And especially if you have kids, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a powerful thing for you to get together with your kids and say, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't mean we don't still get gifts. It doesn't mean we won't have a Christmas tree and decorations and really cool like food and all that. Do all of that. That's fine. I don't think that that's God's kingdom is to have no good, nothing great to celebrate. No, you should experience in the joy of what life means, and God gave us that life. But we should always be responsible with the blessings we've been given and make sure that we think about how could I spend a little less and give a little more than I would have. And so that's what I want to ask you to pray to do. Now, on the way out, I've been wearing it this whole time. This is bracelet. I'd like you all to take this bracelet. And on it, it says Our City Church, and then it just says, spend less, give more. I want you to wear this all throughout the next couple months. And on December 22nd, which is a Sunday, we're going to collect the miracle offering. And we're going to then be able to distribute it to these causes. And I have a number in my heart that I'm asking God to get us to do. I don't want you to worry about it, but I've just in faith said, God, this is the number I want to ask us to do. We do have a couple people in our church that have said, hey, we want to really help the miracle offering just go amazing. And they have pledged upwards of $100,000 to match whatever we give, okay? They said, look, I want to give in faith, but this is what I'll do. Whatever the church will raise, I'll match it up to $100,000. So you might say, I can only give 2. That's not true. You can give 4. You might say, I can only give 20. Not true. You can give 40. You might say, I can only give 100. Not true. You can give 200. I can only give 400, but you can give 800. I can give 1,000. You can give 2. Whatever amount you decide as a family you can give, double it. Double it, because that's what we have. We have people in our church that are like, I want to be generous. God's been good to me. How could we take care of those that are really in need? And I want our church to be a generous church, and it can't happen if we don't plan and we don't decide. And then your kids and then your life grows up and says, look what we did. We gave Christmas to people. We gave a miracle to people that otherwise wouldn't have had it. So pick these up on the way out and be able to wear these and talk about it, think about it. Every time you get ready to buy something, I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying think it through. Hey, is this a part of what God has for us to do? And let's see what we can do here on December 22nd as a church family. Let me pray for you. God, you were so generous to us. You built your kingdom by giving of yourself. And I just pray today, God, that you would allow us to be a part of that. Help us to unkink the hose so the kingdom flow of what you have for us would flow through us and be in us. Lord, I ask today that you would help us to come alongside the way you saw your kingdom. James and John were asking questions because they thought it was about what can I get? How can I sit on your left and your right? How do we rule this world? How do we get to the top? How do I have more and get more and attain more? And then you called out in our hearts to say, no. If you want to be great in my kingdom, you got to become the servant of all. Help us to learn what that feels like, because joy is on the other end of that. Peace is on the other end of that. Love is on the other end of that, God. Values are on the other end of that for our families, and we want that. But we don't get to have that without going through the process that you also went through, which was the pain of the end of yourself. Help us to come to the end of the perfect everything I had ever wanted so I could experience the joy of making someone else's miracle come true. I pray this over our church in Jesus' name, in Jesus' mighty name.